Quick question. Are you rich? Not comfortable? Not doing all right? Rich? Actually, sit with that for a second, because here's the strange thing about this country. Nobody ever says yes. Ask a tradie sitting on 3 investment properties. Ask a teacher out in the suburbs. Ask the bloke who just drove a brand new ute off the lot, repayments and all. Every single one of them gives you the same answer. Nah, not rich, mate. Just getting by. Or the national catchphrase, everyone's doing it tough at the moment. We're a country that has convinced itself nobody has any money while quietly sitting on some of the highest household wealth on the entire planet. Genuinely. Stick around, because tonight's numbers are going to surprise you. We're throwing the vibes out the window and looking at the cold, hard data, current, real, 2026 numbers. Where do you actually sit? Are you further up the ladder than you think? Let's climb it. First stop, income. And straight away there's a trap almost everyone falls into. There are 2 very different average salaries floating around in this country, and they tell 2 completely different stories. The first is the median. Picture every full-time worker in Australia lined up, poorest to richest, in one enormous queue stretching from Perth to the Gold Coast. The person standing dead in the middle earns somewhere around $90,000 a year. That's the true midpoint. Half the country earns more, half earns less. It's the most honest number we've got. The second is the mean, the straight-up mathematical average, and it sits noticeably higher, closer to $106,000. Why the gap? Same reason it always is. The top end drags it upward. FIFO workers pulling down serious mining money, the finance crowd in the Sydney CBD, senior specialists, tech executives on eye-watering packages, they pull that average up like a tow truck dragging a caravan. So here's your first reality check, and it's a big one. If you're on 90 grand, you probably feel painfully average. Nothing special, just another pay slip disappearing into rent and groceries. But look at the median again. On $90,000, you're already sitting above half the entire full-time workforce in this country. You don't feel above average, but you already are. Hang on to that feeling, because it's going to keep coming back tonight, climbing the ladder. Let's keep climbing. What does it actually take to crack the top 10%? As an individual, you're looking at somewhere around $135,000 a year. Picture that person, a senior nurse unit manager, a mid-level engineer with a decade of experience, a decent title, a solid track record. On paper, top 10% of the entire country. Statistically, elite. Do they feel it? Not for a second. Because then the mortgage takes its bite. Council rates climb again. Private health premiums creep up like clockwork every year. Childcare somehow costs more than the car repayments. And once income crosses $190,000, the tax office starts taking 45 cents of every extra dollar earned, plus the Medicare levy stacked on top, nearly half. By the numbers, this person is winning comfortably. By the feeling, they're just keeping their head above water until the next payday. Keep climbing and the air gets thin fast. The top 5% needs somewhere around $170,000. And the top 1%? This is where most people's guess completely falls apart. Most Aussies assume it must be some outrageous figure, that $1 million a year. Easy, maybe more. The real number, based on the latest tax office data, sits at around $400,000 a year. That's still an enormous income, but it's a long way short of what most people picture in their head. The top 1% in this country isn't wall-to-wall mining magnates and reality TV stars. It's mostly specialist doctors, barristers, and business owners, plenty of whom, believe it or not, are still stressing about their own super balance. Quick one before we keep going. Drop your guess in the comments right now. Where do you actually reckon you sit on this ladder? Median, top 10, top 1? Be honest with yourself. We'll come back to it. Income isn't the whole story. Now here's the part that flips this entire video on its head, because income is only ever half the picture. Income is the water flowing in. Wealth is what you've actually managed to hold on to, the tank you've built underneath it. The moment you switch the question from what do you earn to what do you actually own, everything changes. The median Australian household net worth right now, everything you own minus everything you owe, property, super, savings, the lot, sits at roughly $750,000. Read that back. The typical Aussie household is quietly sitting on $750,000, so why does nobody feel it? 2 reasons. Reason 1, it's locked in the bricks. Roughly half of all household wealth in this country is tied up in property. That's the value of the family home you cannot spend without selling the roof over your own head. It looks incredible on paper. It doesn't buy the weekly shop. Reason 2, it's locked inside super. Another big slice, roughly a fifth of that total wealth, sits quietly compounding away inside your superannuation fund, growing for a version of you that's decades down the track. It's real. It's growing. You can't touch a cent of it today. Most Australian wealth is basically invisible, tied up, locked away, patiently waiting. Two Aussies, two very different ladders. This is exactly where age and postcodes split this country clean in half. Picture a 30-year-old in Sydney on a genuinely impressive $140,000 a year. Top 5% territory for their age bracket, and yet renting a one-bedroom unit, still chipping away at a HECS debt. Basically zero in actual assets. High income, almost no wealth. Now picture a retired couple tucked away somewhere quiet. The Adelaide Hills, maybe the Hunter Valley. Their income is modest, just the age pension, topped up with a small account-based pension from super. But the house is paid off outright, bought decades ago for a fraction of today's price, and between the two of them, their super and savings push well past $1 million. Low income, enormous wealth. So who's actually richer? On the income ladder, Sydney wins in a landslide. On the wealth ladder, it isn't even close. The retired couple are miles ahead. This is exactly why comparing salaries alone is a mug's game. Income is one photo. Wealth is the whole album. So let's pull right back. Yes, the cost of living has been brutal. Yes, rents are relentless. Mortgage repayments have chewed through household budgets. And yes, it is genuinely harder now than it was for our parents' generation. All of that is true. But hold two ideas in your head at once, because here's the other truth. Australia remains one of the wealthiest countries on earth. Full stop. According to the latest global wealth research, the typical Australian adult holds more wealth than the typical adult almost anywhere else on the planet, second only to Luxembourg, a country with barely 500,000 people in it. If you've got a steady job, food in the fridge and a roof over your head tonight, you're living a life that, by global standards, is genuinely extraordinary. The average life you feel like you're falling behind on is, to most of the world, the dream. Which brings us to the actual reason none of this ever sinks in. We don't compare ourselves to the median Australian. We never have. We compare ourselves to the mate who just settled on a house in a suburb we can't afford, the cousin posting from Bali, the old workmate who just landed the promotion with the flashy new title, and that right there is the trap, because rich, measured that way, is a moving target. A finish line that quietly shifts every single time you get close to it. Earn more and your idea of enough just drifts upward to match it. There's no salary, no house, and no number that will ever finally make you feel like you've made it, because the comparison never actually stops. So maybe the real question was never, are you rich? Maybe it's this. By almost every measure that matters, you're already doing better than you think. The only thing left to figure out is whether you'll ever actually let yourself believe it. If this one hit different, do me a favour. Smash the like button and get subscribed for more straight-talking money content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.